I was in a lot of different homes until my high school years, and I was pretty much in the same place for all of high school. Junior high and high school were probably the most difficult, because junior high is when you're kind of forming your identity, and everybody in that age group is trying to, have an image or, project what they want other people to know and see about them. And when I first went into junior high, I was at a pretty diverse school. It was every race imaginable and highly populated with Hispanics. So in order to fit in, I immediately kind of clicked in with like the Hispanic group, started acting like them, dressing like them, using the same kind of slang, like doing my makeup like the girls did, and then I would get made fun of at home for doing that. As I got older, it became more difficult because I was surrounded by nothing but Caucasian people. And so I had to try and fit in with them and not distinguish myself too much from the crowd. A lot of my friends tell me that I'm like whiter than them, a lot of my Caucasian friends. I guess because I don't speak with an accent, or I don't have a green card or whatever. Being in foster care doesn't help because you don't know your ancestry, you don't know what side of your family is what, and you have no foundation to refer back to. You don't know who you are in general, let alone your ethnicity. Like, okay, I knew that I was Mexican and whatever, I spoke Spanish, therefore I was Mexican. Like, I didn't even know I had Native American in me or Spanish. I didn't know that until like the past few years. I always thought I was just plain old Mexican from Mexico. For a long time, I just rejected it. I didn't want to speak Spanish. I didn't want to, I didn't want to go down to Mexico and think that, that could be me. I didn't want to be noticed at all. Yeah, my struggle has been more internal than anything in terms of identifying who I am. Luckily, I was blessed with a really good social worker who cared about me. I mean, she helped me a lot, and it's all kind of made me who I am and made me be able to accept who I am.
Race and ethnicity is about who you are, where you come from. It identifies how you fit in the world. So I think that when young people are in foster care, oftentimes they don't always have the opportunities to get to know who they are in the context of their family or community, because they've been removed or placed in another environment.
Race is an uncomfortable subject for most to talk about. It brings up so many internal issues and uncomfortable issues, and racism and white privilege and internalized racism and all of those subjects that are just so painful to talk about, but really need to be talked about. The good things about being Indian. When I grew up, I heard that Indian people were drunk and lazy and were this and that, and I learned to deal with that. I learned to cope with that. But when I had children, I shielded them from that, and they didn't know what it was to be called a drunken Indian. And I remember when my son came home in the 3rd grade, and he was shocked, and he said, I was called a good-for-nothing Indian. And I can't think of anything about Indian that's bad. And on one hand, that was very good. I thought, he's proud of being Indian, that's very good. But on the other hand, I didn't prepare him. I didn't prepare him to deal with racism, to deal with the negative aspects that people project on us. And so race is uncomfortable to talk about sometimes, but it's necessary.
A lot of times in foster care, they identify with other people's culture, and that becomes a part of them, and then that is their identity. But later on, that can cause problems later on in life because, I mean, once you start being around your own people or your own culture, it's kind of hard to change because you're going to want to change because you want to know who you are and what you're about and what you stand for and all that. And you don't even know anymore because you've been, I don't want to say brainwashed, but you've been like just changed completely from the inside out from your youth, from foster care, because you've been to so many homes and so many atmospheres and so many environments, and that just becomes your identity.
Coming up with a racial, cultural, personal, ethnic identity is extremely personal. Only you can decide who you are, where you're going, what you are. And number two, with youth growing up, that's their full-time job. That's what they're doing. That's what they're supposed to be doing. That's what racism is someone else deciding who you are, or what you're like, or what they can expect from you.
Ethnically, I identify myself as a Samoan, and that's because of my last name, which is a Samoan last name, but people assume that I'm either married or something else other than that being my ethnicity. But culturally, I never really had developed any type of cultural identity except for being a foster kid. Because being moved around into different foster homes since the age of 5, I've kind of adapted myself to that culture. And for me, experiencing the culture, I've just experienced betrayal and some bad things, but I've always known myself to be a foster kid, and I openly tell everyone that since I was in high school. That's all.
Without identity, you would never, ever know, who you are. And the most important thing to survive in life is you have to know who you are, and you have to be comfortable with yourself before you can, move on and reach out to others. If you're not comfortable with who you are and you don't know your own identity, you're gonna be lost in a big funnel, searching everywhere, and you'll never find what you're looking for.
It's a lifelong journey that we go through to figure out, who we are and where we fit in the culture. Sometimes you're going on a straight road, sometimes you're going up a mountain and coming to a valley. I mean, a journey, to take a road, you never know what's going to be around the next curve, and there's pain, and there's happiness, there's joy, there's true sadness, there's separation, and there's hard work.
My son was in 6 foster homes. He was only gone 9 months, and he was in 6 placements. He ended up in a group home, and it wasn't a good situation. It wasn't the nicest neighborhood or the nicest place. It was just like a staff of people. He wasn't with a family. Just after every visit, it just tears your heart out. It could make me cry right now. It just really tears your heart out, that my choices put him in a situation that I definitely did not want him in.
Well, when I moved to Richmond and in this foster home, there was a lot of different type of people, and they always tried to get me to be like them. And right across the street there was a basketball court. A lot of people there that was doing drugs and shooting dice, and gangbangers there shooting each other all the time. Foster care actually showed me who I really wanted to be, what I wanted to be, and what I didn't want to be.
I don't know how to really teach him to be proud to be Black. They might not think that culture or race really matters to people, but then they get outside of their own box and then they see that it does. I couldn't teach him possibly that driving while Black can get him, it's gonna happen to him. It's gonna happen to him, and I don't want him to get to be like paranoid of the police, but I could still try to teach him that, your education comes first, whether he believes it or not, that his choices today will affect his future. I just want the people to know how important it is for the social workers to go out of their way to make the children feel like their individual culture is important. You know, the social worker might be the only person that these children have that's stable in their lives, you know, and I just want the social workers to know how important it is for the kids' self-esteem for them to do some research and some work and some acceptance of themselves so that they can help these children out.
There was like these kids there. One was like a rapper kid. He had like his pants going down to his ankles, sagging. Then there was this kid. He had his pants up to his knees. And then I was trying to be like a rapper, and that didn't work. Then I was trying to be like a rocker, and that really didn't work. Then there was this kid that he liked country music, and I liked sort of country music a little. So I liked him, so I hanged out with him, and then I went to school. And people were like, "You like country music? You little white boy, what are you doing with this other kid liking country music? You're black, you need to like rap music."
Some foster kids really don't want race to matter. And I have come to believe that there are a couple of reasons. As an adolescent youth, fitting in and being just like everybody else is number one for them. And being a foster child makes them different already. And adding in being of color, that's a whole nother level. So as a worker, when I have encountered kids who say, I just want to be like everybody, I don't want to be Native American, I just want to be me. I have really worked with those youth in becoming proud of who they are, as they are, however they identify themselves, however they view themselves, and helping them see that there are so many amazing reasons to be proud of who you are and where you come from, and the culture that you are part of, whether at that moment you feel like it or not.
I still got issues sometimes because I grew up in so many different places and so many different atmospheres and cultures. Been in black homes, Asian homes, white homes, Hispanic homes, and they weren't all understanding of my own culture and my own identity. And sometimes I had to adapt to their standards in order to survive.
A person of color growing up in a white, pretty racist culture, there's some certain things you have to learn. For survival, you have to learn it, you know? And the sad thing about foster kids and our whole foster culture is we've taken away people's pasts, all their stories. I mean, if you, part of your culture is where you can reach back and say, how do you do this? How do I do, what happens when this happens? I have talks all the time with the kids going, you know what? When you were 5 years old, you were having tantrums, that was one thing. But you know what? You're black, and you're 15, and you're 5'9", and you'd be doing that on the street, you're gonna get arrested, you're gonna get shot. And people, that's the whole setup is you learn that from your culture. Native Americans, African Americans, 500 years of experience on how to deal with that. But you could put a kid in a white home when they're not able to reach back and find out, what do you do when someone calls me the N-word? What do I do when I feel really good about something and I lay it out and everybody's looking at me weird? You know, there's that connection. That's a big part to me of culture identity, is that connection. Where do you go? Where do you reach out? Who do you touch? And we cut that off. We need a way to nurture that and keep that coming back and have mentors, relatives, somewhere that you can reach back and say, you know what, someone's done this before, help me out here.
I don't think you help somebody else explore themselves, that you're not exploring yourself and you're not looking and seeing how you fit into it or how you react to it or how you feel about it. And youth are at all different stages of ethnic identity, and they're in different places with feeling okay about who they are ethnically, racially, in terms of their neighborhood and their family. So if you have a good relationship with the youth, then it goes pretty smooth. It's difficult to get right to the place where the foster youth is saying, you know, your people did this and that. you know, to my people. And then that's such a huge, important conversation to have, but it's like you have to have this entire relationship built first before you can get to that place. I sat down with Marquita and we looked through this African-American woman kind of shopping guide to look for calendars and all kinds of things, and the messages were really positive, and you could tell she felt proud that these were my people and this is my heritage, and even if I'm not really close with my birth family, I have this whole other family. I have this whole extended group of people to be a part of, and that was really positive. And the more that I know she can go to issues, you know, about her gender identity or about her ethnic identity, then I know she's expressing to me, I have levels of comfort here and I'm feeling good about myself. And obviously, if you look at homeless rates and suicide rates and, you know, pregnancy rates, all the problems that some foster youth face, that's because they don't have that inner core of being. They don't have that center of, no matter what's going on around me, I at least know who I am. Understanding how important race and ethnicity is to youth is it's not an option, it's not ancillary, this is the work. And I know that. I know it's very true. And this is the work. And a youth who has a healthy racial and ethnic identity is going to be successful. And that's the work. What you need to do is not have the situation where you need to take the kids away from the family. That is the only thing that matters to foster youth. And that is really the core of their racial identity and their ethnic identity. The last youth who came in today was raised by his grandparents, and he does not have the same challenges. He has an immediate centered knowledge of who he is as an African-American male, and that's a great benefit to him, and he got that from his grandparents. Just like I got mine from my parents. Today in court, when I talked to that young person after court and I saw in his eyes that he meant to make it, I was like, then I'll do anything I can do.
It begins with the social worker. You know what I'm saying? And it's up to that worker who to help create those connections. You know, to try to open